up and connected. This has been a while since I've gone live on this, but if you're here with me, I just wanted to say welcome to Beard Banter episode 32. We took a break after the big shaving of the beard, so this is the first time I've felt qualified to call this Beard Banter again. And since the two gentlemen I'm bringing on with me today have no beard, I felt it was only appropriate to do this episode once I was more appropriately bearded. So I'll go ahead and bring everybody on. We'll get the topic introduced. Like always on my stuff, if you're here, chat. We'll put it up on the screen. We'll say hello to you. I'd love to see you. We've got it set up where you can chat through YouTube or through LinkedIn or through anybody streaming this. So please feel free to chime in, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I think this is going to be kind of a spicier conversation potentially. All right. I have brought with me, I know, if you bring Erik Boles on camera, it's going to be a bit of a spicier conversation.
Spicy.
Henri? I don't know if that's a better methodology, but
I'm so mild, I'm like cheap picante.
fair. But, poison, cheap picante. No, I digress. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, and the title of this episode is about creator economy, and is the MSP a part of the creator economy? So that's the general route we want to get at. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. Please chime in and kind of tell me what you think. But let's go with this. So my mind, we have seen a shift, and I want each of you to chime in on this and introduce yourself. But we've seen a shift. What used to be the most polished, pretty white background and great corporate comms and marketing prettiness and all of those things were the way we drove success in marketing and growth of software and vendors and things that way. But I think we're shifting to significantly more people want to be taught before they want to spend. People want to be educated. So you're starting to see a shift towards thought leadership marketing, content creation to expose your organization, and all of these different things. And so I couldn't think of two better people to bring in on this. Erik, if you wanted to go first and introduce yourself and kind of what your jam is. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on, are we in a creator economy that's based on thought leadership or not?
So I'm Erik Boles, formerly a Paxator along with my buddies over here. Now launching something that is still a little bit under wraps, but not too much. I guess I put it in my lower third. So I guess
since it's
not
in your
now.
Lower third, it's significantly less under wraps.
I guess it's public now. But and so are MSPs in the creator economy? Yeah, absolutely. I don't care if you are a dentist or an accountant or an auto mechanic or a pool cleaner, or if you're an MSP or whatever, you're in the creator economy. Now, and one thing that you brought up, which I think was really interesting, is it used to be we're transitioning from this white polished background, this neatly pressed from the waist up, highly polished, well edited, whatever. And I think there's a misconception around that because people are like, well, are we moving away from that into this? Like, should we be doing this instead of that? And I don't think any of that's true. It's if you're an auto mechanic that only works on transmissions and then all of a sudden you decide you're going to work on rear end differentials as well, you don't throw away all your transmission tools. You just add the tools to do this other thing along with you. There is absolutely always still going to be a need for super highly polished, well-produced corporate content because that's part of our brand as a corporation. I think the augmentation to that now is, and to your point, businesses are done being pitched. We're done with the cold emails, the cold outreach, the cold everything, and the 12 email drip campaigns. And it's real easy to delineate the old school marketers from the new ones because they're like, steal my never can lose headlines for my 12 drip email. And I'm like, is this 2004? Like we shouldn't be doing this at all. In fact, Chris Roberts that works for Boom Supersonic, is that right?
Yep.
He's a CISO.
Friend of mine. I'm going to have drinks with him in less than an hour, actually.
Well, I talked to him about this. He and someone else have a podcast that's literally about this exact topic, which is stop interrupting me. And a cold email, a cold outreach, a cold call especially is basically saying my agenda and what I do for my company is far more important than anything you have going on. So I'm going to interrupt your day. And I would argue that through creating content at scale, widely spread, that adds value and never touts your brand and never tries to sell, you do that at scale. Now you have an entire audience of people that you can engage with their content, talk to them, add comments, thoughtful comments, not good point, like stuff that actually matters. Now, every single lead you have is
good
warm.
point.
There's no such thing as a cold lead now. Everything you do, now I reach out to him via DM and I'm like, hey, would love to connect and learn more about what you guys are doing.
Yeah,
You know, it's now a
absolutely.
warm lead. There is no more cold leads. And of course the other thing we get is, God, I don't have 4 hours a day to create content. Well, if you're creating a 90-second video, which is really all you should be creating, less than 2 minutes. If you're creating less than 2 minutes and you own one of these, if you've got 5 minutes, you can create content.
Yeah. You know what? We're going to
What
come
if I
back
have
to
a
you in just a sec.
Galaxy instead of an iPhone with this 100 megapixels going on right here? And
I'm
Well,
going to
you're
buy
still
6
getting
more
leaked
iPhones so I
faster.
can get to 100 megapixels.
So Tom, that brings me to my point. You actually have written content specifically on this conversation, right? As I recall, you've actually said, "Hey, I have my thoughts on this," and yours focused. I'm going to put the link here for anybody that's watching. Please go ahead and read this. But yours focused very much on this recycled content as a way to be a thought leader. And if I look back at the beginning of our success, right? Just for anybody that doesn't know me, I was part of an MSP. I was a technician number 7. I got to buy in later in that year of starting up. And then we grew it from $1 million in revenue to 40 million before I exited, and now over 100 million as a conglomerate. And they've just added more in another recent acquisition. Right. And during that time, a lot of our growth was during those, traditional boot camps. And then we're going to deal with all your content for you. And we're going to send your client those annoying drip feeds that tell you exactly what I want from you anyway. And I think you tackled this pretty heavy. So Dom, I'm going to hand it over to you. Introduce yourself, anybody that know you, and then
yeah,
and
I
then tell me what you're
kind of
thinking
slapped
here.
the model around, didn't I? But yeah, I made that short link right before the show and realized I kind of picked a weird slug considering we're cyber people. So
Yeah, fair.
the
I like
topic of the article is bad content, which is why the slug is bad. It's just easier to type, guys. But anyways, yeah, I'm Dom, and on this show, I'm a content creator. That's about it. So, but I ran an MSP for 5 years. I've seen it, and we call this model syndication, right? So the general concept is there's providers and they'll make you a decent website. Like I don't want to shit on them too hard. They're okay websites. But when you go to the blog, right, which is really like on a website, the center of content is the blog, right? You obviously have, we do this, that, and the other, and we're good at it. Then you have the blog, and that's where you're supposed to educate people. That's where you're supposed to share updates. You might do news releases in there. If you take a lot of MSP's website, you take their latest post, take the title of said post, put it in
and
Google.
search it.
You're
Yeah.
gonna find like 450 identical articles, all published within a day of each other, and that's syndication, right? They write the content once, they push a button, and feeds push it out to all of their managed websites, right? Now, here's the problem: is now that content is entirely irrelevant because it's very easy for me, the consumer, to be like, "Oh, you didn't write this at all. That's not even your opinion." And if I called you and asked you about that blog post, you wouldn't even know it exists. Right. And it's kind of ridiculous. And to boot, they tend to be entirely irrelevant, right? Just completely useless. Like, oh, the Apple share went down 10%. And then the next post is about, Android 12 or Android 13 that comes out in 8 months. Like it's completely irrelevant to the target audience of that customer.
So we've got a question from the audience that's right on the nose. First off, Richard Hudspeth, Matt Hache, great seeing you here, buddy. Matt's like my boy. I love this guy with all my heart.
Love Matt.
We've got Richard here with us. Thank you for saying you love this. And then now this meat of this question. So Benjamin Jones says, okay, I guess my question for you, Erik, and I would even point this to Dom too, is how do you give someone something that hasn't been done a billion times? And he might be trolling you here. You may know this human, but let's tackle answering that question for him. How do you not repeat the same thing everybody else has done? I've got thoughts on it, but I'd like to have you guys take a poke first. So Erik, you're up,
Dom,
since you were called out.
Okay. All right, I guess I'm up. So I think it's a super good question, and it's a very, very valid question. So just because it's been done a million times or a billion times doesn't mean that everyone has seen it. This is no exaggeration. There are many times that I'll talk to, not many, but there's still relevant times when I'll talk to people and say, like, if you take this piece of advice from Gary Vaynerchuk, and people will go, who? Gary is arguably arguably one of the more notable people on social media when it comes to creating content, right? It's how he built his brand. So if we can say, I've talked to people about, like, hey, what about Mr. Beast? And they're like, I don't know what the heck a Mr. Beast is. And I'm like, he's literally the largest YouTuber in the world, and people don't know. So with that, you have there's an audience of audiences of audiences. So you're not necessarily going to be the next Mr. Beast. I mean, I'm pulling for you, but you're probably not. You're going to be either a micro Yeah, you're going to be either a micro or a nano influencer. And there's two pieces to this. One, you're adding value to your audience. And you're right, things that haven't been said a million times, everything is stolen. It's how you add your specific thoughts to that broader thought that matters. So you might have a different take on it, a different spin on it. If there's one piece of global content and I am if I'm a Matt Lee and I'm a security guy, I view that through a certain lens. If I'm a product and engineering guy, I view it through a different lens. If I'm a biz dev guy, I view it through yet a different lens. So your spin on that will matter, and the way you present it may be something that they've heard before and thought, nah, that's stupid. But then you, Ben Jones, decide to present it in a certain way, and they're like, whoa,
I'm gonna distill this. I'm going to distill this a little bit of a different way real quick, and then Dom can go.
Okay.
It's, I guess, the host's prerogative, unfortunately. But, I have an answer of this of, even if you took the same content, if I went and made content about Chat GPT right now, if I went and talked about it, there are a million people talking about Chat GPT. One of the other purposes of this is you're being genuine. You're being you. You're talking about it from your understanding of it, from your lens, from your translation of why does it matter to a customer, and so what you're really doing is being organic and genuine. People these days have a much larger BS filter, it seems, than they used to have, right? And so you have this organic translation of this. And why is Gary Vee so valuable in what he does? Because he just holds out a phone, records his stupid self, and has no humility about it, and just honestly brings the transparency of what he is. So my tackle this, and we've actually got lots of good questions coming in, so I may have to cut us short because Justin's is a great one. But the conversation is, it's about being a genuine part of your view on this in a way that means something to people you understand. So there's two components of that. You're showing your customers you understand them and what matters to them. And to the point earlier, Dom, if you're talking about an Apple share price difference, it's probably not what's high on their list of radar right now for your customers at your MSP, right? And on the other side of it, you're proving to people that you know what you're talking about, or that you are at least up to date with the things, which is what they want to know about you, is that you're taking care of their environment and you're staying up to date with ideas. And so I'll get off my pulpit on this one and let Dom tackle it, and then we'll jump over to Justin's question because it's really good. I'm really excited about it. So let's go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, both your points, you don't have to have the most original idea in the room, because that's not how technology works, right? Like the new Windows 11 feature is the new Windows 11 feature, no matter which Windows 11 consumer you are, right? But being able to bring your own spice and opinion into what you're saying is huge, whether that's on video, whether you're writing it. You might be sharing the same piece of information, like, oh, they put the little, I'm just picking on my own machine now, I've got the little search thing in Windows 11 now, right? I might have an opinion about that, right? And I'm going to share my opinion about it. I'm going to share how some new feature in Intune that's relevant to my customers is relevant to them, right? The customers I serve in particular, or the prospects that I want to turn into customers. And the same thing goes, I'm a huge, huge fan of tech tips. Just like, hey, did you know Outlook can do this, or Teams can do that, or whatever.
You do a lot of those. Yeah.
Those are super cool too.
And they're super amazing for MSPs, because your process will be like, oh man, I use Teams, I didn't know it did that, right?
And you get a ton of engagement on those, Dom.
He does.
Well, they're by far my most popular content, and it's simply because that particular person either didn't know or they didn't see my particular take on it. So if I shoot a Teams tip video or whatever, and you're an MSP, I always put on my post, copy the hell out of this, just do it yourself, right? Your take on it is going to be slightly different from my take on it. So a consumer that watches both will get two different opinions and takes and sort of viewpoints on the same piece of content.
All right. Well, first off, let me take a second to do some of the normal housekeeping. So Benjamin said, thank you, Eric, for your answer. Well put. Thanks, guys. And then Richard, I wouldn't be the exclusive. Richard's my boy, too. I didn't mean to be exclusive with that. That wasn't trying to say one, not the other, if you will. So not being that way. Awesome. So this one actually read out. I love this question because it's one that forces us to be a little bit of a thought experiment. And so he basically said, and you can't maybe read it all, but it says, at what point do companies decide to kill the BDR, SDR side of things, that call, dial, email, blah, blah, blah? Or will BDRs be the TikTokers? I hate that you put it there, Justin, but the TikTokers of the world are these people that are getting, and actually maybe that's one we can put into a second question that will really trigger each of us. But what I think what he's meaning by that is these thought leaders, or these, social media drive of that, bring them to you, don't send crap to their box, right? Back to Chris Roberts' show. So who wants to tackle this one first? Just jump in. Do you
Go
think
ahead, Dom.
BDRs will
Dude, Chris
change?
Roberts' post was so beautiful because he did one. We're gonna have to find it. He wrote this whole like email template on what he's gonna start sending to people, and I actually have
Yeah,
used it a
I
Oh,
few
remember that one.
times.
Yeah.
dude, it was
And
so good.
it beats the hell out of them, but it doesn't blame them, and I really love because it's not the SDR's fault or the BDR. It's not. The tools and the techniques that they've been given by their leadership are garbage, just
Yes.
absolute garbage, right? It's 1987 marketing, right? Like before the no call list existed, where you would just spam the shit out of everyone. They haven't been given the tools. So for me, if I'm going to interact with an SDR, one, they need to know something about me before I'm even going to open their message, right? If it says
Yep.
hello, first name here, they forgot to delete one of the squiggly brackets or what have you. My auditors are coming in on me.
Yep.
Hold on.
It happens.
These guys are brutal.
The
I've seen them come down on him hard, bro. I've seen it.
yeah, dude, it's
It's like WWE.
I'm more likely to listen to an SDR if they come to me and they know what my problem is, and they know that the problem is my problem, right? Because my title says director and cloud services, I think every SDR on LinkedIn assumes that I make all of the product purchasing decisions for Paxate internally.
Me too, apparently, for security,
that
everything.
seems,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's ridiculous because if you do a little snippet of research on Paxate, you realize that that's not my job at all, right?
Well,
So it's for me, it's putting the effort in, but also the companies themselves need to improve how the SDR programs work, and it needs to be more focused on people that have warmed up to your content, right? You watch enough
yeah.
content, that user's probably going to subscribe to something, click something, interact with something that's going to warm them up in your CRM, and now that's someone that you sort of, I don't know, should talk to, right? But if I'm not that person, if you haven't learned something about me, what I do, what problems I have, and how you can solve them, and I haven't interacted with you, right, through some level of medium, in this
Yeah.
case being consuming your content in a trackable fashion, don't talk to me. Don't want to hear
Well,
from you.
I don't want to beleaguer that point too much because what I really wanted to focus on is this conversation of could an effective thought leadership program enable or reduce the size of a BDR SDR team? I genuinely believe that answer is yes. I
Yeah.
genuinely believe that if you can build a thought leadership path that creates people being warm, knowing of your company, like, great, let's just take this through some of our very specific space, like the CMMC space. I absolutely would buy from several of the companies that I've learned so much from, right? If you look at Joshua Copeland or if you look at any of those players out there putting that out, right? Jacob Horn, I think so highly of their company because of just seeing that human be a thought leader in this space. And I attribute to that company must also be that awesome. So now if you're a BDR and you're calling, and you're going, oh, that's that Jacob Horn guy. Yeah, totally. And to your point, Dom, if it's scoped to the right customer, if it's not wasting some of those efforts in the wrong way. And I don't want to beat this point to death. Maybe just yes, no, Eric. Do you see thought leadership or this kind of social media presence capability changing what a BDR SDR program looks like in the next 5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. And I don't think it's thought leadership. I think it's engagement. I think it is.
Fair.
I comment on your stuff thoughtfully. I create content around certain topics. But to your point, it's like we didn't used to have email. All we had was phones, and we'd pick up the phones all day long and call people and go, "Hey man, you want to buy forks? No, cool. Hey man, you want to buy new forks? No. Hey man, you want to buy spoons?" Like that. That's what we did. And then email came along, and when email came along, we didn't go, "Well, I'm never using that phone again." They're like, "Hey, we're collecting everybody's phones off their desks because everything's email now." This is just yet another tool in the toolbox. So it just makes your job easier. So again, when you do have that engagement, when you finally have that phone call, now it's a warm lead because they know who you are. To your point, Dom or Matt, it's like when somebody emails you and you see their name pop up, you're like, I know that name. Matt has commented on a bunch of my stuff online and done this and done that. Like I'm comfortable. He's added value to my life and made me a better person. I will answer this email. I'll at least read this email.
You know what? I like your distinction before we move on to this between thought leadership and engagement, right? Because engagement actually really doesn't take a lot of avant-garde new thoughts. It just takes caring about people and being genuine and true to what you hope to accomplish in your goal. Richard said, listen, being genuine matters so much more in my opinion. Dude, you and me both, 100%. We encountered so much
100%.
jargon. Connecting to people is key, like uniting them. If I've worked with somebody and I've actually tried to sit on the same table and learned about them or seen their content, I have so much more attachment to that human because they're genuine and I can trust that what they say is what they say, right? And so you live in this world where being genuine is tough. Sometimes you have to go against what your feelings are for something to be genuine or go against the grain. Like if one of our vendors has a major incident, how do you reconcile that, right? How do I, as a person commenting or bringing out my thoughts, balance those forces? But I do love the point that genuine matters more. And for me, when I'm on a decision of that, I often choose genuine, even if that means it costs me something. Right. And
every
so,
every
yeah.
post, every video, every comment, every reply, everything should be like, I just bought a brand new winch for my Forerunner, and I'm sitting in a bar with you, Matt, across the table, and I'm telling you how fucking excited I am about
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
this
Yeah.
winch. I'm not
Right.
saying, so Matt, let me talk to you about the Warren 9300 winch. Here's the reasons you need to own one. I don't care if you own one or not. I'm just super stoked that I got one. And so
Passion is
I want to tell you all
contagious,
about it,
right?
right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to
100%.
infect you with how awesome this winch is.
Yeah. 100%. Well stated. Got to catch up with these comments. Y'all are crushing it in the comments right now.
You're
Thank you so
killing it
much,
right
y'all.
now.
Waves at kiddos. Dom, he thought it was pretty cool that you was waving at the kiddos back there. And so, Ben, if you've ever watched our show on PAX 8 that Dom and I do in our work personas, we call them his auditors. those are his auditors checking on his cybersecurity work. So they're
I've yet
brutal.
to pass.
Yeah.
You have not
Well,
passed without nonconformities, right?
yeah. Matt, you'd made a point just a little while ago about marketing not wanting to figuring out where this stuff comes from, and it's all about attribution, right? And it's really hard to track attribution when you have a bunch of people all creating content.
That's the topic right there, bro.
You
That
know,
Justin
and
kind
that's
of touched on that though. He said, "Hey, I
yeah.
asked my marketing team for an example of an affiliate marketing link, like something I can go get others to track their capability." That's one of my big challenges, right? I pitched this concept of being a social media external resource, educating the partner, engaging the partner, driving community, bringing thought leadership, right? And I pitched that, but how do you then say what that actually did financially? How do you attribute that to that one BDR's lack of number of phone calls they had to make? Or, and I have not come up with a great answer. I can only track the activities. I can only track the engagements and the counts and those things. You can't directly, even non-tangentially, track that impact to business development capabilities, right? Like it's huge.
Right. And I think at the BDR SDR level, you can't. At the account executive level, you can, right? It's like, here was the number I was doing last month. Here's the number I'm doing this month. I made this many phone calls last month. I made this many phone calls this month. If I made less phone calls, but yet my number went up, something happened. Now, it could be an anomaly, but chances are, if I do it month after month after month, there's something going on there. And we've gotten so, people want to be treasured. People do not want to be measured. I'm not a statistic. I'm not a line on a fucking spreadsheet. I'm a goddamn human being. So engage with me. Care about me. It's what I
Right.
call it's what I call the give a shit factor. Give a shit
Yeah.
about me, give a shit about my business, give a shit about my life, give a shit about my future, give a shit about my success, and you will win me over every single day. Products are commoditized. I can find 4 different vendors that do what you do close enough that I can make it happen. But if you're the one that actually cares about me and my business, you win every single day.
Yeah, and Justin's clearly been touched by the fire on this one, right? Because he goes on to say, management always wants to measure. And I think this is some of our friends' problem right now and people that are finding themselves in this
Yeah.
world. Because to your point, if you're a content creator and you are also an AM, then it's easier to correlate. What if you're a content creator and you are not carrying a bag and you do not have that? And it's a tangential impact where if you're going out and creating content for your MSP, let's say, right, and you're not going to be the one to go sell, you're not the salesperson, you're an owner or a technician how do you track that in, the kind of separated response that creates by Dom going out talking about how awesome you should secure yourself with Microsoft products? How many more Microsoft products does that move by a salesperson 700 rows down that's never going to have any of that correlation to that? And I think this is one of those where I would ask management to flip this on their head and say, of these top YouTube creators, have you ever watched one of their videos? And I bet
Right.
the answer is going to be yes to 2 of the 5. Right? If
Sure.
you tackled out Bikes and Beards guy, if you got Pierogi the scammer guy, you're going to find that people know the right. Yeah. You're going to find people have seen it. And I do that as a thought experiment to explain that that VOSA or whoever's sponsoring that person has had direct impact they can measure from that space. So the point is, it's about getting the eyes. And I think to your point earlier, Erik, it's about being able to say, I do get the eyes. I cannot necessarily translate how many of those eyes are there, but I know when I go to sell, I'm better at selling. They've already known about us. They've already heard about us. And let's take this in my world. Let me just be a little transparent and humble here. when I started down this path of building a following in LinkedIn and building a persona and sharing an image of me and talking about the things I do, those are all very crafted and curated on purpose to make it easier when I ask the next one if I can do the same. If my goal is to go understand MSPs and my goal is to go understand security challenges or vendors and where they're going and the things that are there, it's a lot easier when they go, oh, I know who Matt is. We ought to take his meeting.
That's
Right.
right.
And I think that's the point that you distill this all down to, is being known in the platform where people's eyes are, where they're trying to get the answers to their questions. Why the hell would you not put your shit in there for people to get the answers from? Like, it's stupid. And so
Well,
I really think, yeah, sorry, get
and
off my
you
soapbox
know
here.
you raise a really good point, right? Is that you have all these people on LinkedIn that are like, in their bio, it's like, I'm a this and this expert, I'm a this and this thought leader.
Yeah.
The fact that you put expert or thought leader in your title tells me that you absolutely are not,
You have
because
missed
you
the
had to
mark.
call yourself one.
Yeah.
Matt and Dom are both thought leaders in the cybersecurity space. And the reason that I know that is because a ton of other people share their content, link to their content, and they call them thought leaders. They call them experts. It's
Yeah.
when somebody else calls you an expert or somebody else calls you a thought leader, it's you don't get to talk about yourself that way. Think about going on a blind date, for an example, and it's your first blind date, and you sit down and you sit down at this blind date across from this girl, if it's me, and you're like, I make a lot of money and I drive a really nice car. My house is about 6,000 square feet. Like, if I start going through the things of all the reasons that I'm amazing, I'm not getting a second date, man. Like, she's going to be like, who in the hell is this dude? I mean, obviously he makes a lot of money and drives a nice car. And that's what we're doing in marketing right now, is we're like, we're really cool and we're better than everybody else. And this is why you should date us. Rather than saying, tell me about you, man. What's your background? What's your education? What do you like to do? Do you like to go hiking? Oh, you don't? Yeah, this isn't going to work out. I'll go ahead and pay for dinner. We'll see you later.
So, to the core question of, are MSPs part of the content economy? And I think, or the creator economy, however you want to call it. And I think the answer is they're choosing not to be. I don't know that the answer is no. The answer is yes, they should be. If we've already said that this is driving business, look at NordVPN, right? Not NordLayer, the business side, but NordVPN, the consumer side piece. They had a path of sponsoring every single, even almost no-name YouTube provider
That's right.
out there. Like, you would see a commercial for NordVPN on every YouTube screen. Do you know why they're so big and how they have so much revenue? Because of that. And so you get into this understanding that you're seeing a shift of younger generations. You've got people that, even boomers and people that came under boomers, are now absolutely indoctrinated for the most part of their later adult life in technology. They're watching YouTube. My dad goes to YouTube to learn stuff every time. And so the point is like, look at Tom Lawrence. Right, I'll call him out. I don't know if he's watching or not. He commented earlier, but
Perfect example.
he has just been cranking out amazing content for years. And he finally did a very transparent breakdown of his revenue, and John Hammond has done one as well recently. And you see these people that we think their money is coming from the success of the channel. John Hammond only made $40,000 last year, and he is crushing it on YouTube. Where do you think his real power and capability come from? By being a genuine, awesome guy that people see, know, and love, and will do anything in the world for, including me. Myself would help John Hammond from that association. He didn't
100%.
look at me in the lens. He looked at the lens and taught and cared and showed himself and gave himself out there as a piece. And so I think when people talk about, oh, the creator economy, I'm not going to make money on YouTube. I'm not going to. No. If Nord understood that people having 6 followers was worth having someone believe them and sponsored putting an ad on their thing, right? You get into this world where people understand the value of it. We don't, as MSPs. And I think, Dom, you go look at people's websites. You've got a side company that you do some consulting on the marketing aspects. How many times do you send me messages throughout the week of, Matt, this is fucking terrible. Like, this is the worst I've ever seen. Like,
number of like what is it? I think it's 21 questions you should ask your IT provider. That same lead magnet is on every MSP's website. And I absolutely refuse to believe that they're getting usable leads out of it, right? And it's that exact issue of that's completely unhelpful to me, right? Like, lead magnets are dead. This whole I'd even pick on StoryBrand a little, although there's some good concepts in that. But the landing page thing and the PPC thing is dead. When I can just get on I'm not going to say TikTok. I hate TikTok, but I
Yeah,
can just get on
I can't in
YouTube
good faith say
or
that.
Instagram.
But it's a reality. TikTok's a
It is.
reality.
I
I
know,
know.
but I'm gonna be the guy that's the loser for that decision. I'm
Yeah.
wearing that one in my
It is,
heart. I'm
it is
okay
not
with
on
it.
this
Yeah, yeah.
device. It never will be. But anyways,
And
like
there's an
if we
interesting
look at
paradigm about
the
TikTok.
ability to just get on a platform, shoot a video, or someone asked earlier, should I write? Yes, you should write. You should do it all because some people want to read, some people want to watch,
Yeah.
some people want to just listen, some people like long form information, most people like short form though. But anyways,
Which I'm not
whatever
accused of very often.
you're writing is write it out.
We're a
or
snackable generation,
send it
man.
out, publish it,
I know.
right? Like my donkirby.com gets somewhere around 9,000 unique hits a month, right? And I'm not advertising it. I just write what I think and I put it on LinkedIn and Facebook and Mastodon, and that's it, right? And then it gets traffic from there. I'm also going to rewind a second and address this whole measurement thing. So when you see me post a link to, Pack State content or someone else's content, you're going to see it's domk.pro. One, again, it's a short link. If you choose to type it, you can type it. But also every time you do, it's like, hey, someone clicked this, count, right? So I have, for myself, a genuine understanding of how much actual click engagement I'm getting, anonymously, for the record, in case you care. But
Yeah.
it's a number of humans that have clicked that content, so I understand how much traffic I'm driving and where.
Well,
Yeah,
and if
100%.
an SDR or BDR can track in your CRM, Salesforce or whatever, how many times they picked up the phone and dialed, why can they not put in there, commented on this post, commented on that post from this guy, from this company? Like, everything's trackable. You just have to document it, right? And then a account manager picks that up and says, we know that this BDR or CGS or whatever talked to this person or commented on this, engaged with this person's content. Either I'm going to call them, or I'm going to have the BDR SDR reach out to them, or I'm going to now go as the account manager and follow this guy on LinkedIn and engage with his content. And I don't want to let this go by. Benjamin Jones, thank you for giving a shit about me, and I love you.
Yeah. And this, I want to go back to this comment really quick because Tom Lawrence, being a great guy, he actually is a really great guy. I really
He's a
like
really
the guy
good
a lot.
guy.
I've gotten to spend some time with him, and he's just the bee's knees. That said, though, how much business he drummed up. There's a couple things I want to unpack here. I think he's probably in his market drummed up some business from people seeing his stuff or seeing him show up for a couple reasons. Number one, anytime you start rising up of other people voting for you, there's a little bit of a logic flaw, which is good to abuse here, that if others already have liked this person, they must be good, then they're going to be somebody I'm going to follow. So you do have some bit of this snowball downhill. But one of the challenges, especially in cybersecurity, is anybody that wants to be in cybersecurity can be in cybersecurity. Any idiot can stand up and say they know what they're talking about. And it really often can gain tons of that snowball effect in that regard. And so my point is that don't miss the value of that. If you're having to step in and say, I know you need to do this, Mr. or Mrs. Client, and they say, well, I don't know, it's much easier when they already think of you as a leader in the thought, when they already see the exposure of how much stuff actually goes into a day-to-day. When you actually post 12 different things in the last 2 weeks that say, here's another thing you need to be thinking about. And they're like, oh my God, this is all this stuff. You get some legitimization by sharing a window into your world. Any MSP that's ever had a sales deal with a client, how many of you walk them through your office and let them see your world and see what's going on in your place? Why? Because they feel attached. They feel like they're let in. It feels organic. It feels real. It feels like something that they could put themselves in that belief. And when you're doing social media, you get to control that for what you want to be seen. You get to control that for what you want people to understand about your business. And Tom Lawrence crushes that, like absolutely crushes that. And he's found his place there, right? From a customer point of view, Justin goes on and says, hey, do you still see value in content that's made in the direction of the company versus being an individual thought leader, or does it seem infomercial? I'll poke at that first. And he goes into a for example that I can read real quick. And he says, for example, I'm not a technical expert in cybersecurity, but I still want to draw attention to the folks in my community and my company that are technical. Hell yeah. I think one of the things that's cool about that model, if you don't talk about your company, if you don't talk about what you do, if you don't break it out of, let me do this great thing about blah, 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 blah. No, but if you bring in a way to show a window into your world, that smart guy that would never put himself out there, that smart gal that would never put herself out there, and empower her to have an exposure to show a beautiful, amazing toy you have that's brilliantly driving your success and their success, why the fuck wouldn't you show that? Right. And so I absolutely would say I am on one of my personal missions this year is I'd love more of our companies, SSCs, to be out there talking and sharing information, becoming these content creators and becoming these things that they've got a thought. They pick up a phone and go, I had this thought. I see so many customers come in that are not doing, vulnerability scanning the way they should. And gosh, it just breaks my heart. That's going to be an endearing video to somebody searching vulnerability scanning as an MSP. Right. And so I'm beleaguering the point, but I genuinely don't think, as long as you're not being disingenuous, you're not just canned speaking about something, and it's something you genuinely have found a passion or belief or an understanding for, there's a lot of value in talking about it from your role of, even as a sales guys, I see people not able to do this, or I don't get so I don't think it's disingenuous, Justin. I like seeing exposure of other resources, even for the purpose of exposing your company's resources. I do it every Friday with Dom Kirby. Catch us at 4 p.m. Yeah, but anyways.
Yeah, just be super conscious of how you, where, when, and how you insert your company into that content. It's like a whipped dog, right? It's like you get a dog that's been beaten by somebody and you take it in as a shelter dog, and you're never going to beat it. But for the first 6 months, every time you go like this, that dog goes, oh my God, I'm getting the crap beat out of me. It's not, but we're so now tuned into, here comes the sales pitch, where it's like, here's all this value, here's all this value. Dude. Your pitch is the but in a sentence, right? So if I'm Matt's boss and I bring him into my office and I'm like, Matt, you're crushing it. We love all the content you're creating. You're really leaning into the cybersecurity thing. All the people love you. But here's one thing. None of the things I said before that matter now, because he didn't hear any of those. He heard but, and everything after that where I'm like, but if you could just do this, that's the only thing he heard. When you had 6 paragraphs of valuable content, whether it's written or audio or video, and then you say, if you want to learn more
product, we'll solve it.
Yeah. If you want to learn more about this, email me at this email address. I'm immediately like, the whole thing that I just read was a fucking sales pitch.
Yeah. And it's almost like you're assuming they're too stupid to find you if they liked what they heard, right? Like this comes from old marketing.
For real. Or too stupid to realize it was a sales pitch.
Yeah.
It's like putting your email address in your email signature while you're emailing me. It drives me
with your email. Yes.
Like, don't put your email address in your email signature, for the love of God. But anyway, I would add to, like, the whole mix of corporate content, I think, is valuable. And if you're not super versed in what you're wanting to talk about, using other people is great, right? Until you do get one, you should learn.
Amen.
Like, we preface that.
You bring them to your sales engineering meetings. Why would you not bring them to the other piece of this conversation? Yeah.
Well, like Matt and I tomorrow are going into the studio to shoot some of this type content where we're going to have deeper conversations on camera that are resources that other people in the company can use until they're comfortable. And eventually they're going to get comfortable, I hope. Yep. And then they're going to have their own content around that. But you can absolutely, especially if you're at a company that has those resources, use them. Right. And if it's someone that's not going to be comfortable whipping out their phone and shooting something, and you have access to a team that's going to make them comfortable and get them in front of a camera in a way that's sustainable for them, take full advantage of that. Right. But and like the content Matt and I are shooting, it's done professionally. I think we have definitely have the best cameraman I've ever met.
Definitely have the best cameraman.
With sure. And the best. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah. All of it.
So best cameraman, best online producer, best editor.
Yeah. So it's going to be this fantastically produced thing, but the whole intent is that they're attaching it to their own stuff that's a little less produced. So you're mixing that content together to get the most engagement out of it for that individual person and their individual audience.
And I want to touch on something else. Bob Coppage. So I know of at least 3 MSPs that are just ripping it on the creator economy, right? Maybe 4, because you count Tom Lawrence too. But they've built studios. They've actually, some of them have hired people to be their person to make someone feel comfortable, Dom, to your point. But Bob Coppage came on and said one thing. He said, when people watch your content, they don't want to see you be the hero.
Nope.
People watch your content to be the hero. Right. And I think if you're out there being a creator and you're starting down this path as an MSP, find ways to make your client the hero in your video. As you're talking about this, find ways to make them be able to take your data and go be the hero with it, not show how amazing you are.
So fluid components and teams, like these little text boxes and tables, you make one and everyone gets to co-author it. You can put in an email. This wasn't even a piece of content I was shooting. I use it internally because I'm just used to using them now. And it was with someone from marketing, with someone from an operations team, and completely blew both of their minds. It's like, man, we're co-typing in this box. It's one of my favorite features of Teams that's come out in the last year. So they got to go and show that to their team and be like, check out this cool feature I found. that's a hero moment for them because they've improved some sort of issue of, co-creating text or whatever issue they were trying to solve. So if you can shoot a short video that's like, hey, Teams does this or whatever, and then they can take that and show that to their people. That's the
And you know
hero
what's
moment.
funny, Tom? We, in the sales process, when you're doing that, you have this concept of building a champion, right, inside the organization. Somebody that's going to drive that. You're building champions without even having to talk to them. You're out there creating something that lets someone go in and go, hey, did you guys know that you can do this? This is amazing. I learned that from this really cool.
Yeah.
Like that's the point. And I think Bob Coppage crushes that. And I didn't want to end this episode without mentioning that your job as a creator is not to be the hero.
And I think
go ahead,
Tom.
Because he takes risks with them and he makes Star Wars jokes and it's just so nerdy and like human and entertaining. So it's not businessy. It's super fun.
One year into him creating a video every single day, I asked him, I was like, has it changed anything? And he said, I'm definitely getting more conversations from people that I've touched in the past that went dark, that have come back and said, I think it's time to have a conversation because you did things in your video that made me think. And that's really what it's all about. And you have to think about that extensibility, right? It's like you start to become that content creator. Now there's somebody else. We're quickly getting away from the channel concept and we're getting into the ecosystem concept, right? And that ecosystem is you become a content creator, somebody else who has a larger audience, and you's like, hey, here, this is a prime example right here. Matt's like, hey, you have some ideas on engagement and audience content creation. He has a far larger audience than I do, but I'm here. And so, and I benefit from that. So when you become that person, now you get to go and say, okay, I'm going to be on Matt Show. Like you have this audience of audiences of audiences, right? And there's value in that. Look at what Cisco just did. Cisco is launching a program to turn all 84,000 employees into content creators. Every single one of them. Yeah. They called them influencers, but marketing got a hold of that one apparently.
Well, we're getting to the end of our time. We have 3 minutes left, so I'd like to let Dom and then Erik, any closing thoughts on this one question of what could an MSP do tomorrow to start being more influential and start taking advantage of this creator economy in their own worlds?
Well, I'm just looking at my finger.
Practice. I mean, look, you all read, because I do, and I always have. You read some nerdy news about something or another, right? You probably sell some product that your customers use, and you could probably help them be a little better at it. You probably are through like Lunch and Learns or whatever. Turn that into a piece of content. I don't care what kind it is. We get something you're comfortable with. You don't have to do video on day one. It's definitely a leap. It's not a big leap, by the way, but it is a leap. It's a LinkedIn post, or it's documents on LinkedIn are fantastic for sharing information.
Carousels.
Write something on your website, but create some piece of content that solves some issue that you know that your audience is looking to solve. And then just do that. Like start with once a week, step it up. You'll get more and more comfortable with your first chosen format. You'll move into a second, and eventually you're shooting videos, and eventually you just kind of have to start and keep momentum.
I'll really quickly go, and then Erik, you can close us out. Mine is this. Everybody talks about how do I get started? Where do I go forward? I would actually wager you're only limited by your own ego. And what I mean by that is the first year I made content, I couldn't even watch my own content. I couldn't even listen to myself. Why? And as I look back on it, I was fragile enough in my own ego. I had a high enough view of myself that I didn't want to fail or be wrong or be not perfect or not answer it exactly the way. And if you talk to anybody else creating content, Tom Lawrence will tell you this. He gets stuck in loops where he has to go make it perfect. John Hammond has to go make it perfect. And I think what's interesting is, in my opinion, people put you on a pedestal when you create content because they themselves are afraid to create content. And they have the same ego challenges. And when you overcome it, it is just like watching an athlete be an athlete. It is just like watching a star be a star. You have this translative property there. And so what I'm getting at is people don't care how great you are. They are just great to see that you're doing it. And I don't think there's a wrong answer to that. And I would say don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Don't chase perfection. That's why Gary is so amazing, is he just puts out his thoughts. And as long as they carry weight in their own value, they'll be heard without the perfection.
That's right.
So anyways, Erik, wrap her up.
That's exactly right. And I think it's real easy to get stuck in your own head. And and I'm not pitching by any means, but I mean, this is one of the reasons we started VOSA was there's so many MSPs that are like, should I do something like this? There needs to be a community of people like you that are thinking the way that you're thinking. And the number one question I get is, what light should I buy? What audio, what microphone, what camera, whatever.
And none of those matter until the end of it.
The best one you have on you, pull this out of your pocket. When you tap on the screen, there's a camera button right there. Just turn that thing on and hit record on video and stop watching that's it. It's literally, that's it. Be genuine. You have literally millions of experiences every single day, whether it be a blog post you read or LinkedIn post, or you heard something on the radio, or you were on a phone call as an SDR, a BDR, an MSP owner, whatever. And you're like, I can't believe that guy didn't know that. And then you're like, wait a minute. I wonder how many other people don't know that. I wonder if that's worth a 2-minute video. It is worth a 2-minute video because you're going to take 5 minutes making that 2-minute video. And if it flops, you wasted 5 minutes. You waste more than that at the coffee pot talking to Julie from accounting every single morning.
I said I was going to be done. But you just triggered me on something of this. I just ran into this experience. I made a video that I took about 4.5 minutes to make and then 8 minutes to record. So I had about 12 minutes in this video, and then I plopped it up on YouTube saying something about my views on something. And then someone else got frustrated with me in life because they were putting out a similar video and they released it 6 weeks later, 4 weeks later, after being perfectly produced and all the things. And my thought is, this is another one of those examples where traditional marketing techniques of let's book the studio time, let's get the right background, let's make sure our CTA anchors are there, let's make sure the CTA is the right CTA, let's ensure we can track it, let's make sure you get more value out of just fucking making it than doing all of the things to validate how valuable it was.
If it flops, it flops. If it takes off, guess what? You found a banger. Expand on that. Send that to marketing. Create polished content. Run ads against that content because you spent 4 minutes litmus testing what actually works. And the 8.5 out of 10 that fail, you're like, well, we only spent 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes making that mistake. But the 2 that work, so literally in 3 hours time, you're going to create 10 pieces of content. One of them's going to launch, and you're going to be like, hey, marketing, guess what? I just found a piece of content that's a banger. Let's take this. And they'll be like, if your marketing department's smart, they're gonna be like, hell yeah, let's do blog posts. Let's do a highly polished video that's well edited and shot and lighted and all that. Like, this is a topic people are interested in.
And there's somebody else on this call that's actually crushing it. So first off, I want to close out with thank you, Justin, for being here and all the conversations. Thanks for
having me, man.
Appreciate
so
it.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a blast. And then Justin agreed he's inspired. That's all I care about, man. If we can move someone to be inspired, that's brilliant. And then Alex Farling, I don't want to miss this. Alex actually creates a lot of great content, right? They actually do a really, 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 really good job of just putting it up there and going for it. And, Alex, one of those I've looked up to as I've gone through this in, validating my constant creating of content in that same breath. So thanks everybody being here. Erik, thanks for being here. Dom, thanks for being here as always. I just like to be able to share my thoughts in this, Cyber Matt Lee podcast where I get to just be me and not have anybody's flag I'm flying. So I'm happy to have
for every single person that's commenting and watching this stream right now. I have a challenge for you. The minute we're done here, grab your phone, go launch the LinkedIn app, click on record video, and go record a 30, 40, 60, 90-second video. Tag us all in it and say, here are my thoughts on
how
we're going to grow.
Cross-eyed, or how your beard looks. Just
something that you learned. Right? Yeah, something that you thought or learned from in here. Go do that and just see how it goes. I think you'll be really surprised.
I gotta go. I'm gonna go.